Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Anderson, and I'm delighted to see you here, but also to know that there are many people elsewhere on the Zoom, and we'll be involving you a little later in the questions. This is a symposium on the Rohingya predicament. We'll try to explain what that is, and to do so in an hour and a half in a conversation with you and with the other people. I know that we'll have to be focused. So I'm very pleased to have my colleagues from SFU, Joanne Lee and Doris Tai, who are maximum supporters. And at the same time, I want to acknowledge that we are supported in this event by the David C. Chai Lam Center for Intercultural Communication and the Center for Comparative Muslim Societies, the study of comparative Muslim societies at SFU, and also the Dean of Arts Fund for Global Asia. We're very grateful for this kind of support and encouragement to our work. I acknowledge, and we all do, that we're standing on the unceded lands of the Salish-speaking peoples. This campus is, and the one on Burnaby Mountain, and the one in Surrey, the Musqueam, the Coquitlam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish nations, and others not far away, to whom we are grateful for the strange circumstance that we find speaking here about a more or less stateless people in a world in which the indigenous peoples themselves have only just begun to get traction into the state of Canada. My two colleagues who are here, one is on the screen and one is MQ Zaman, are responsible with me for this book called Rohingya Stories. Now, just as an amusing aside, many people in this room speak Bengali, and I do too. And I know that these people, when they're in Bengal or Bangladesh, they call themselves Rohingya. But in Myanmar, they're called Rohingya. And so I use the Myanmar pronunciation because that's, my brain is in Myanmar sometimes. So Zaman is a specialist, anthropologist, but he's specialized in resettlement and migration. He teaches all over the world, but at the moment, he's most focused on Pakistan. And he's going to do a book on that subject soon, I think. But he and I have known each other for many years, and I'm very grateful that he phoned me up one day and said, "Bob, you can do this." I didn't know how to say no. And the other person who's on the screen is Kausar Ahmed. He's in Winnipeg. He's also an anthropologist. We have a slight surplus of anthropology here, but he's also has experience in UN peacekeeping forces. He teaches a course at the University of Winnipeg on conflict and intervention. and he is the founding director of the conflict and resilience research institute in Winnipeg. And we're very grateful that he's here today vicariously. And I do want to to recognize that we have uniquely and not accidentally, but with superb coincidence, Alexandra Campbell, who is from Singapore and who is the editing director, the procuring editor and editor-in-chief and any other title that we can give you of Springer Nature, which publishes from Singapore and has previously done a book by Mohammed Zaman on the Bil people of Bangladesh. Finally, not finally, but Zawad Qureshi, our friend from Ottawa, who is on leave at UBC as a practitioner fellow. No, fellow practitioner fellow. We'll find out later what that really means. But he's an analyst in Ottawa of South Asian affairs, and we're inviting him to spend some time to describe this world that we're talking about from his point of view. Now, without taking any more time, I pass the mic to my friend Mohammed Zaman.
With your permission, I'll just sit down and talk. I want to say hello again and welcome you all. I'm very impressed by the in-person presence of so many friends and colleagues here. We have some additional 40 people who have joined us by online, and welcome all of you to this book launch and discussion on the Rohingya crisis, which is close to our heart for many reasons. But having said that, let me introduce the book, and I'll take about 8 to 10 minutes time. And as you realize, you cannot say quite a bit in 8 minutes on any book. So I will provide a sort of broad introduction to the book and emphasize the importance of in deepening our understanding of the ongoing crisis, the importance of the book. As you know, the crisis is rooted in systematic state-sponsored violence and persecution within Burma, resulting in widespread displacement and humanitarian emergencies that have affected several countries in the region and also to some extent globally. While many in the West tend to view the Rohingya crisis primarily as a humanitarian issue, it is crucial to recognize that at its core, the Rohingya crisis is a political one, and tracing back over 2 centuries of discrimination, oppression, and exclusion from political processes. So the Rohingya crisis is just not merely a 21st century thing. It's not an issue of recent years, really. The deliberate, long-standing discriminatory measures compounded by recent geopolitical dynamics reveal how Rohingya statelessness has been produced and perpetuated over time. So by examining the crisis from this particular vantage point of view, our book sets itself apart from other recent publications that focus primarily on the humanitarian relief and repatriation. Now, topics that are currently definitely vital yet the only part of such a larger and more complex issues. So it's just not humanitarian. It's just not repatriation issue. It is a large complex part of the large complex issue. Our book offers a strong multidisciplinary and humanist perspective with contribution from scholars from inside Myanmar, from camps in Cox's Bazar, as well as others who have covered Rohingya genocide and their stories, followed international responses to the crisis, and reported on situations of Rohingya refugees in the region, in countries such as in Pakistan and also in India, and so on. We are thankful to all our authors for their contributions in this very important book. Now, the book opens with a very strong and very powerful voice of a young Rohingya poet named Ro Mehruz. And the title of his poem is No, I Don't Have a Home or Strength to Speak. That's how it starts. This is the opening statement in the book. Now he continues, and I quote, "What do I have to say? What? When no one listens, who do I speak to? What do I say and what?" Unquote. The Rohingya issue persists because no dominant power, whether it's regional or global, has demonstrated any genuine interest in seeking a just and lasting solution. This year, the Rohingya crisis enters its 9th year. Crises represent a critical test of the international community, commitment to the justice, and accountability. Now, the efforts of the now deposed Hasina government in Bangladesh have not, in fact, yielded any substantive results due to Myanmar's refusal to recognize the Rohingya as citizens, shifting geopolitical interests, and limited international pressure on the Myanmar government and its accountability. Now, is the newly elected government in Dhaka ready to address and resolve the long-standing deadlock? It is too early to make any assessment. A fresh approach definitely is required to bring renewed energy to address the crisis on a sustainable solution. There are other questions that we can raise and deliver it on during this discussion this evening. However, the bottom line is very clear so far I am concerned. The situation has to change for the Rohingya people, for repatriation to Myanmar, to their homes, with dignity and rights. That's the bottom line of any solution. Well, let me stop here and invite Bob Anderson to briefly explain the background and history of the Arakan Rohingya issue. And then our colleague and co-editor of the book, Kausar Ahmed, will join us online from Winnipeg. Bob, over to you. Thank you. There's a question.
Let's show them the slide that
Okay.
we wanted. There, that's what we wanted to show.
Yeah.
That's Mehruz
Explain if you want to say something.
inviting them.
Sure. Now, this particular picture is from the poem that I just quoted from Ro Mehruz. The uncertainty, the bewilderment of the Rohingya people for not knowing their future. And this is a very powerful statement from that particular poem.
So are there any questions so far?
Yeah, just we will entertain one question and then there will be discussion session, obviously, if you have anything at this point. Let's
Well, we're going to look at the map, the map of today and the map of the 18th century. Try to think of the kind of analogy that would make sense to Canadians of why the Arakan has been such a troubled place for so long. And I think the analogy of Quebec in Canada helps. As we know, the conquest of Quebec by British forces ended more or less in 1763. And the management of Quebec by outsiders, which resulted in a kind of hybrid Quebec, Upper Canada kind of government, and ultimately the position of Quebec in the whole of Canada, within the Constitution, with distinct laws, legal system, distinct political system, and special role in Parliament. You know about the Parti Québécois, you know about the Bloc Québécois. So the conquest that occurred in this Arakan coast by British forces also occurred in Lower Canada in 1763. I'm very unused to speaking about the 18th century, so I sometimes blank out and I revert to the 19th. But the fact is that Arakan had a different legal system. It had a different political system, a taxation methodology. It had international relations, the king of Arakan. And so when the Burmese king at Mandalay arrived and conquered the entire space of Arakan and incorporated it in Burma under the Burmese legal system and tax system and military system, it created a deep memory and resentment and a determination to retain and amplify its distinction from the rest of Burma, especially from Boma-speaking people. Now, if I run the cursor over the plate, I've been going to Arakan since 1974, so I go every chance I get, but it's never enough. But anyway, this place, Sandaway, was lost to the Burmese king around 1760. A very powerful earthquake struck up here, which is the site of the capital of the king, now called Mra'u. And by penetrating at different places along these hills. These are not high, but they impede easy movement. And there's deep ravines, quite thick forests. I think they're probably not higher than 1,000 meters, but they have essentially provided a barrier that Arakan enjoyed a separation from the ambitions and the military instincts of the kings of Burma, of 18th century Burma. Now, the poem that we that we think about in this book is this one. This is by a poet who is involved in the Ekkale project. And we invited them to come here. They're somewhere else in the States, I think, today. But here's the this is the importance of the Naf River. It's an insignificant, if I may say, river at high tide in a maximum, monsoon rain. There's lots of water in it, but we have rivers. I mean, I think the Chuckamus at Squamish is about the scale of the Naf. Although when the tide comes in, it's significantly large, and you wouldn't be swimming across it. But there are places where at low tide and in low water, dry season, you can get animals across, and you can kind of swim across. So Anamul Hassan I've just selected this tiny thing from his poem, but the Naf River is this boundary, and this is where Cox's Bazar in 1799, in the last year of the 18th century, it had 40,000 people drawn from Arakan, probably around 25 or 30% of the entire Arakan population had come across the Naf, had come, were scattered around, and a very enterprising East India Company officer called Hiram Cox told his bosses, "I'm going to put these people in a place where we can manage them, and they'll be together. And maybe I can persuade, on your behalf, I can persuade some of them to stay and clear the jungle, cultivate the land, settle." Because the Bengal was for the company, it was all about revenue and taxation. So this Cox's Bazar now has 900,000, let's just make up a number, of people identifying as Rohingya. And they can very precisely say where they come from. They tend not to come from further south than the city we call Sitwe, or Akyab as it used to be, because they used to be much more, distributed in Arakan, but they have migrated north for a number of complex reasons. But they got there, these 40,000, by a kind of the occupation by the Burma king led to a new system of taxation, a much more extractive structure for capturing labor, both paid and obligatory, free labor. Now, to the king at Mraku, the Arakan people also owed labor, but they had to produce it, so to speak. But this kingdom was also very skilled at moving into the deltas of the Podda, the Ganges River, and seizing slaves who were brought back to Arakan. They were usually Muslim slaves from Patuakhali, Borishal, all those chars that you have written your book about, and they settled and cultivate this vast rice cultivating system so that this part of Burma became one of the world's largest rice exporters. So this instability, this occupation, if you think about Quebec and the land tenure system, at every level, Quebec holds a special status in Canada. And I, as an outsider, I'm not born here, and I didn't grow up in Eastern Canada. You wouldn't understand it, but it holds as astronomers say, a gravitational mass that is most unusual in the structure of the state. And Jawad Qureshi can see that all around him. I take it almost every day. And this reservoir of resentment and bitterness and grievance, even though it has subsided over 240 years, this reservoir is still available. And the Arakan in the system, such as it is, of Myanmar elections, the Arakan parties, the sort of nationalist Arakan parties, or the faction that decides to side with a potential government like Suu Kyi's, they insist on their seats and their specific claims and their rights. They don't get them, but they do. They haven't forgotten their distinctness. So that's in a nutshell where I think the origin of this predicament lies. Now, the position of the people who call themselves Rohingya in Myanmar, they call themselves Rohingya and they speak to other people as being Rohingya. But when they speak about Bangla and come to Bangladesh, they say Rohingya. And that's their self-conscious and their what's the word? They have a long history of being self-conscious, independent, and distinct, but they have had to, and they are still struggling to make the best possible relations with the Arakan people who haven't left Arakan and who are unlikely to leave, and who remain what we call Rakhine. And that's enough. It's complicated, and I forgot to show you this brilliant photograph. That's what the remnant of Mraku looks like. And if you know Buddhist architecture and iconography, there are some quotations in their structures to the big Buddhist structures in Bengal. And even in central India, they're unlike the famous constructions of Bagan in central Burma. So the distinctness of the Arakan style, you can say, at this is the capital city, which is an engineering marvel, by the way. It's an amazing thing how they've done the hydrology at this place. This gives you a hint of the look of and how it must have looked in 1780. Thank you. Now we do have time for a question.
We move on to Kausar, and then
Well, you don't want to have the.
you can ask a question.
Yeah, we have time for a question.
We can entertain one question at this, and then during question and answer session, and then more questions. Do you have anything to say? Yes.
Yeah, I was a little late.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry? Oh, my name is Mizanur Majumdar. I'm from Bangladesh. and been here for, I don't think loud enough. You can hear? Yeah, I can hear it too. Okay. Great. Yeah, so I'm from Bangladesh, been here for about a little over 30 years. I'm an engineer by background, so I know Dr. Samar for a long time. Anyway, so my question is basically, I might have missed that part, but I heard that, like, if I understood correctly, when I see the Rohingya or Rohingya people, whatever you call them, I don't know why one part calls Rohingya and the other part called Rohingya, but I talk to them and I understand because I've been in Chittagong for some time and I little bit understand Chittagonian language. And I found out that Rohingya language and the Chittagonian language is also exactly the same. To me, it sounds exactly the same. So I'm just wondering, I believe you said that people in Cox's Bazar actually migrated from Arakan to Cox's Bazar, so they brought the language there, or it's the other way? I don't know.
Do you want to answer? Historically, Cox's Bazar was founded by the Rohingyas.
Oh.
During the British period, a lot of people came. The Cox's Bazar dialect is not from Rohingya. They have a separate dialect. But there was some kind of a interaction between these two historically. So if you go back to the history, there is a specific chapter in our book, the whole Rohingya identity historically was in Rakhine for sure, but it traveled to Bangladesh, back and forth, cross-border for economic, social, trade, marriage, all kind of relations in the last 200 years. But it is still on. It's not finished yet. Even within the current, complex political and security issues, people are still migrating in and out, for various reasons. So this is a very complex issue. There was a short introduction to the book before you came, and we can follow up on this during the question and answer session. We have with us our another editor, Dr. Kausar Ahmed, who is joining us online from Winnipeg. And over to Kausar.
Thank you so much. I hope I am audible. Thank you, folks, for joining us. It was a great effort, great teamwork, and I definitely thank my two senior editors in fulfilling their huge task. So just to be cautious about time and my part, I'll mostly focus on the chapter that I wrote, and my core interest is the security situation and how it evolved over the past 2.5 decades, if I may say so. In the book, I wrote a chapter titled "How Rohingyas Were Caught in Between Tatmadaw, the Myanmar military, and the ethnic armed group, and most prominently Arakan army." And this is one of the serious predicaments that Rohingyas are going through now. So before I go into a little bit of details about the security condition and what the future holds for Rohingya repatriation, let me also kind of promote myself and our organization, Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, because Rohingya research is our flagship research since the founding of this institute in Winnipeg back in 2017. We have published 3 books, edited, and I spoke to many venues with regards to human rights, justice, accountability, and of course, currently we are running a project. If you are interested, folks, you can trace us. It's a funded project by Global Affairs Canada. It's called Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. And in this project, we are trying to promote a 6th approach of conflict resolution, and which is about reconstructing the Rakhine area itself and providing an alternate means of conflict resolution to both the parties, Arakan army and Tatmadaw. So, and in addition, we are also deeply involved in various projects in the camp since 2019. We run schools for the female adolescent, in the camps, and also we have just finished a small livelihood project, and we are aiming a little bit more in terms of various activities. So coming back to the point that one of the serious predicaments is that, and one of the photos that you see on the screen is taken, I think, 2025, early 2025, when Arakan army was gaining a lot of ground in this province. So there was some sympathy towards Rohingyas, in this province, especially in the northern Rakhine, which is totally under control. And as you understand, October 2023 onwards, the alliances of three brotherhood armies, which is composed of Arakan Army, MNDA, and the other one I'm forgetting its name. So they have actually conquered many of the places. I would say not conquered actually, but the word should be repossessed a number of territories from Tatmadaw, and it was quite I term often lightning speed with which they really gained possession of those areas from Tatmadaw, and Tatmadaw actually retreated, and especially in the border areas of Bangladesh and Rakhine, we have seen Tatmadaw army retreating quite I would say in large numbers, and they actually sought refuge in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh arranged their repatriation back. So, on the one hand, these ethnic armed groups kind of gained quite a bit of lands and asserted control, and Tatmadaw withdrew. And on the other hand, Rohingyas were recruited by Tatmadaw army from the IDP camps. As you also know that around 200,000 Rohingyas are still living inside Rakhine in various IDP camps. So they are forced to be recruited within Tatmadaw. And also we have reports from Arakan Army that Arakan Army, as you see on the screen, taken from New York Times, reportedly persecuting Rohingyas to a very great extent nowadays. And on the side of Arakan Army, we have reports, and people spoke with us in my last two visits in November 2025 and January of this year. I was physically there in the camps, that Arakan Army is accusing them or blaming them that they have taken up arms and fighting against Arakan Army. So Rohingyas are kind of misunderstood and misplaced and caught in between these two, what we often metaphorically say, caught between a rock and hard place. So that is the situation in northern Arakan with regards to Rohingyas. And there were reports of burning villages, killing of civilians by Arakan army, and these are, again, the point is these are a little bit of unverifiable. However, our sources confirm that this is exactly happening. Having said so, now let me tell you a couple of things. As you have heard from our senior editor, Dr. Zaman, and Professor Bob, that this whole crisis is actually political. And although humanitarian angle is mostly focused in the West, especially justice and accountability side, but political resolution of this conflict is the only one that from the Institute we advocate. And in my last presence in the House of Commons as an expert testimony, I did emphasize that donor countries like Canada and others have to really emphasize in resolving the conflict where from it originated. But again, it is reality that Rohingyas are living in large number, approximately 1.6 million now in Bangladesh, which it becomes a national security and humanitarian issue for a small country like Bangladesh. So we have to really understand the issue from both perspectives. And I'll finally end by saying that diaspora groups play a very important role in conflict resolution and supporting Rohingyas back in various places. Not only Bangladesh, there are more 8 countries where Rohingyas kind of took refuge in the past couple of decades. So we have to keep in mind that while the humanitarian support should continue, and which is, by the way, that it is in decline. USAID has wound up, and other humanitarian agencies have reduced their support. But on the other hand, there must be a parallel process involved in finding out ways to resolve the conflict. Our team is heading to Southeast Asian nation in April and May. We are trying to connect and revive the 5 point consensus in ASEAN, and trying to convince ASEAN that they can take a greater role in conflict resolution in Myanmar, which will eventually ensure that displaced people like Rohingyas and other minorities can go back. Ladies and gentlemen, those who are watching us from distance, let me be very honest and clear that the essential bottom line of this crisis resolution is all displaced persons should be able to go back to their motherland or the places where from they were displaced. All the Rohingyas that I have met over these past 9 years have said the same thing to me in person and in various ways. That is the only solution. Very recent discourses that I have heard in Dhaka, Bangladesh, is really troublesome. Many non government organizations and donor countries are advancing a discourse that emphasizes integration because they say that repatriation is not possible. So the only plausible way is to integrate Rohingyas into local community. So that is something our research and our position is against. So I have to really make it very, very clear that this is not the solution. And if anyone is trying to advocate this similar position, you are actually supporting the genocidal Tatmadaw, because this is what they wanted. They wanted the Rohingyas to be out of that place where they belonged. So any position supporting integration is equal to supporting the genocidal activities that had happened against the Rohingyas over the past 7-8 decades, even after the independence of Burma or Myanmar. So, with this, thank you very much. And once again, please buy our books and read and contribute to the greater advancement of the knowledge of conflict resolution. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Kausar. We will have one question, if you have, to Kausar on the presentation he has made before moving on to Jawad Qureshi. Please go ahead.
You mentioned in the beginning that in Bangladesh, also in India, and India has significant influence over Tatmadaw, but it never comes into the bilateral negotiations, so to say. So, has there to be a India-Bangladesh consensus on a common approach in this regard for security matters?
Yeah. Kausar, you want to address that?
Okay, so this is something is not happening, unfortunately. I completely agree with you that India could have been one of the major players in conflict resolution with regards to security. And just for information, I think a year and a half ago, there was a team from Tatmadaw visited New Delhi, and there were discussions and senior leadership from the military sat with the civil society in India, and of course Indian military. So there is an exchange. There is a kind of exchange going on between India and Myanmar. But unfortunately, Bangladesh is largely absent. If you ask me why, I don't have very ready-made answer. Only I can guess that India has geopolitical footprint in Rakhine quite, I would say, ambitious. If you have heard Kaladan multimodal project, which connects the port of Paletwa through the Kaladan River from Bay of Bengal, so India has already commissioned it, and India also thinks possibly that the insurgency, or let's say the turmoil that Arakan army has unfolded in their border area, must not spill into the area where India itself has security concerns. As you know, Seven Sister, Mizoram, and Assam areas. So I think this dual tension actually precludes India to be deeply involved in resolving security dilemma in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kausar. Now we'll invite Jawad Qureshi to come and sit here. And
Please, anyway.
You can sit here.
please,
Thank you.
Next one.
yes.
I think I can project my voice, but I'll hold on to the mic nonetheless, and let me know if you can't hear me online or over here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'll do a little bit of a self-introduction, but certainly to Mohammed Zaman, Kausar, and Bob for hosting me. I happen to be in Vancouver, and I got an advanced copy of the book. I breezed through it. I think I have maybe a chapter and a half left that I wasn't able to finish, but I get a very good sense of the book and all the works that gone behind it. So my name is Jawad Hussain Qureshi. My day job is I work with the Government of Canada in the Privy Council office, which is the department that supports the Prime Minister. I look at South Asia, so anything between Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and everything in between. I should preface things by saying that I'm not speaking on behalf of the Government of Canada. I am not here. I don't have a policy role. I work under the National Security Advisor of Canada. I advise senior officials on issues in South Asia, their foreign policy, domestic politics, but policies developed by our foreign affairs, other relevant departments, and PMO. I have an affiliation. The reason why I'm here is I'm also attached to the University of British Columbia. I'm attached as an adjunct professor and, as Bob mentioned earlier on, as a practitioner fellow. So I've been very fortunate to be able to continue teaching at UBC remotely from Ottawa. So I'm going to put on my academic hat, though I have a good sense of the Government of Canada positions, and I'm happy to try fielding questions, maybe diplomatically, especially if I'm going to venture into policy. But thank you so much for having me. I really want to thank the editors and the contributors for this important volume. I think in terms of my own engagement, specifically on the Rohingya issue, has been largely, as I mentioned, through the lens of South Asian regional dynamics, particularly Bangladesh and India and how they've played in and around the issue. These certainly are the two countries bordering Myanmar that I look at and I work on most closely. I think most recently, I've also encountered the issue through the security reporting of maritime migration and human smuggling routes across the Bay of Bengal and the Andaman Sea. So maybe colleagues would be familiar. In the early 2000s, we had two big boatloads of refugees from Sri Lanka during the course of the civil war over there that came on the west coast of Canada and British Columbia. Human smuggling, especially exploiting people who are trying to flee the region from South Asia, whether it's Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, even India, and certainly Bangladesh and Myanmar is ongoing. And a lot of these maritime ventures are initially were focused towards Australia, New Zealand, but they have been trying to put them towards Canada too. And in the last few years, some of them certainly did not come to Canada, but were almost in distress. These boats, people were about to drown. So Canada, working with the UN, rescued these people, repatriated them to Thailand, elsewhere. They're being processed as refugees. But I think from my vantage point, this is a very, very important book that makes very important contributions for me as someone who works on the operational side, trying to understand the countries involved, their foreign policy, but also in terms of Canada's engagement over there. I think one of the key strengths is that it situates the Rohingya crisis in a much longer historical and geopolitical context. The editors emphasize that this is not simply a 21st century humanitarian emergency, as we heard from Bob and Mohammed Zaman and Kausar, but rather the culmination of centuries of marginalization, migration, and political transformation in the Arakan Bengal frontier. I think I'll offer three very quick reflections from a regional perspective as a regional analyst. I think the first one for me is that the Rohingya crisis should be understood as a borderland problem too, not only as a Myanmar domestic issue sometimes. I think historically, and Bob has been reflecting on that in his talk, the Arakan Bengal frontier has been a fluid zone of migration, trade, and political authority. Communities moved across what is today Myanmar, Bangladesh border long before the modern states existed. The book, for me, reminds me that cross-border population movements between Arakan and Bengal were already recorded in the late 18th century, and Bob was referring to the 1700s and the king back then. Today, the historical fluidity shapes the regional reality. Bangladesh hosts roughly 1 million Rohingya refugees, especially in Cox's Bazaar. I've been there myself. I go to Bangladesh every year as part of my government work, making it one of the largest refugee settlements in the world. For Bangladesh, this is not only a humanitarian challenge, but a long-term governance and security issue as they see it, affecting local communities, economic development, and political stability. I think India encounters this issue quite differently than Bangladesh. Rohingya populations there are much smaller, but the issue intersects with broader debates about migration, citizenship, and national identity, especially in Northeast India. I think it came up in Kausar's comments, but we have upcoming state elections in West Bengal, in Assam, in parts of the Northeast. And Rohingyas or Bangladeshis in general, Bengali Muslims in particular, are always a political issue over there and sometimes wrapped into the same thing. Separately, there is a Supreme Court case that is ongoing in India around Rohingyas and their population, their welcome. The current government has a particular political view around them in terms of security and terrorism. So the Rohingya population has been caught in this nexus with its neighbors of how they've been described by the previous government of Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh in terms of initially a very warm welcome, settling them in, but later on pointing fingers at them in terms of crime and disturbances and theft and whatnot. So I think they've been used for political maneuvering by the governments of the day. I think, in other words, the Rohingya crisis operates across borders and its consequences are deeply regional. The second reflection that I found from reading the book is that the book effectively highlights the geopolitical context surrounding the crisis. The future of the Rohingya cannot be separated from the strategic competition unfolding in the Bay of Bengal and the Eastern Indian Ocean. Major powers, including China, India, Japan, and the United States, have economic and strategic interests tied to Myanmar and Bangladesh. Rakhine State itself sits along important economic corridors, and we heard about India's Act East policy in terms of its infrastructure development in Myanmar, in and around the region. Certainly, China, how it connects over there. We have a very deep sort of growing presence of other states in and around that region. Not to mention Canada's own Indo-Pacific strategy that connects our engagement across the Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean regions well into Bay of Bengal and going forwards. So energy pipelines linking the Bay of Bengal to China pass through this region, and there have been plans for ports and special economic zones along Myanmar's western coast. This means that humanitarian concerns, domestic conflict in Myanmar, and great power competition intersects in ways that complicates efforts to resolve the crisis. My third reflection from reading the book: prolonged displacement creates secondary regional security challenges. One of the trends across South and Southeast Asia, increasingly monitored, is the expansion of, as I mentioned earlier on, maritime human smuggling networks across the Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea. I think maybe people may not be as familiar with this issue because it's not as much in the news cycles, but we have been tracking it very closely and working with Southeast Asian partners from Thailand to Vietnam to Malaysia to Indonesia, because there are Rakhine populations, especially in Malaysia, where people are trying to, if they can, move to and their families trying to resettle them there, or get on bigger maritime ventures to come to the West, where they may have a more hospitable welcome. So one of the trends that we've been seeing is certainly of maritime human smuggling. A few years ago, for example, several boats carrying Rohingya migrants were stranded at sea for weeks as regional states debated responsibility for rescue and disembarkation. It was really troubling that states were not willing to rescue these people and would have let them drown till others intervened and made sure they were at least rescued, even if they were going to be sent back to Bangladesh. These episodes illustrate how stateless populations can become trapped between humanitarian imperatives and border enforcement policies. It is important to stress that Rohingya refugees themselves are overwhelmingly victims of these systems. But long-term statelessness and limited legal mobility creates conditions in which criminal networks and smugglers can operate too. So a lot of these refugees, Rohingya refugees, especially in Bangladesh, are being taken advantage of in terms of promise of a better future, a distant homeland, and migration there. From a regional security perspective, therefore, the longer displacement continues without durable solutions, the greater the risk that the crisis becomes embedded within broader irregular migration and trafficking networks. let me briefly offer two light critiques of the volume, if my colleagues would allow it, both intended in a very constructive spirit. First, while the book does an excellent job exploring historical and humanitarian dimensions, I, as maybe a practitioner on foreign policy and national security, would have welcomed a deeper engagement with regional policy responses, particularly from South Asian states such as Bangladesh and India. They are certainly embedded in some of the chapters, but I was thinking more in terms of a separate section, I guess. These countries sit at the front line of the crisis, and their domestic political debates shape many of the practical constraints around refugee management and repatriation. So that's the lens that I was looking at in terms of maybe this constructive sort of comment. The second thing I wanted to offer up in terms of a very constructive comment was the book rightly situates the crisis within global geopolitics, but there may be room for further exploration of the maritime dimension of the issue. The Bay of Bengal increasingly serves as both a humanitarian corridor and a security space, linking refugee flows, trafficking networks, and broader maritime governance challenges. Bangladesh itself is working on an Indo-Pacific strategy. There is a new naval base being built over there. I mean, this is part of a region that is increasingly become, if not regional competition, but a larger sort of global interest in terms of, the security space over there. These points, the two that I made, do not detract from the book's strengths. Rather, they highlight areas where future research might build on the foundation that this volume provides. I'll close on one final reflection. Much of the global conversation about the Rohingya understandably focuses on humanitarian suffering and legal accountability. And maybe colleagues may be aware Gambia has a court case in the International Court of Justice around the genocide of the Rohingya, and Canada is actually a part, is supporting that particular case in terms of our official policy. But these are essential discussions around human suffering and legal accountability that need to be had. But what this book does particularly well for me is remind us that Rohingya crisis sits at the intersection of history, borders, and geopolitics. So understanding it requires us to think simultaneously about four quick things: the historical evolution of the Arakan Bengal frontier that is well covered in this book, the political trajectory of the Myanmar state, regional dynamics in South and Southeast Asia, and the strategic importance of the Bay of Bengal. In that sense, this volume contributes something very valuable for me. It encourages us to move beyond a single narrative and instead view the Rohingya crisis through multiple analytical issues, or lens rather. For scholars, policymakers, and practitioners alike, like myself, the broader perspective is essential, not only for understanding how the crisis emerged, but also for thinking more realistically about the challenges of resolving it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I'm very pleased that you mentioned the Zambia case, because among the number of gaps that we have in the book, it's the question of the ICJ's, well, the Court of Justice cases which treat Myanmar's behavior, the Myanmar army, but inevitably those cases impinge on Arakan. But there are other parts of Myanmar where such charges could easily be brought. If I can add a personal angle, I was very much hoping that the Ambassador Bob Ray would be able to move such cases up into more prominence, but I'm not sure that it was possible. And now he is retired, technically. Can you comment on these cases that have come before the ICJ? I don't mean as a lawyer, because you're not, but from an analytic point of view. please.
Sure. And like I said, I can talk about it. I'm certainly not a legal scholar, not a lawyer, but I think Canada, in a lot of cases, I'll give two maybe examples. Canada has a history of mass immigration, especially of threatened populations. So over the decades, if you remember Ismailis from East Africa, when Idi Amin were expelling them from Uganda, from elsewhere in East Africa, we took them en masse. We took a lot of Vietnamese boat people when they were being threatened. Similarly, people of Nepalese origin from Bhutan, when they were expelled, we have the largest population who moved over here. So I think Canada has had a long-term interest in threatened populations and when they've been pushed out and supporting them in their rights. So I find that this is a long-standing bipartisan between the conservative liberal parties who've been only in government interest in terms of supporting these populations. So the Rohingya is one of the most recent cases around them, where the government, like previous refugee populations that we've brought in, supported legally in an international fora, we've done them because however cynical you get, I think the government of Canada has ebbed and flowed through a values-based foreign policy. Yes, we do work with interest, but there have been those episodes. But the second thing I was going to say in terms of legal support, I think we also have a rich tradition of, and this starts from Vancouver, from Lloyd Axworthy, the human security principles and how we focused on the individual. And this was a core principle of Canadian foreign policy at one point, of threaten people, not just as a larger group, but starting from the focal point of an individual. And I think from that point on, and again, I'm no scholar, I'm looking at it as a dispassionate person within sort of government, I think Canada has made it an effort in terms of trying to support legally what it can do to fight for the rights of threatened populations. So whether it's in the ICC or the ICJ. Now, the thing is, it's been, to be honest, from how I see it, inconsistent. Yes, we're there much more sort of enthusiastically supporting Gambia's case on the Rohingya issue, but there may be other cases of genocide or suspected genocide where Canada has been less present in terms of its support, or maybe sort of not even there in any case. I don't know the merits or the where that particular case is right now, but from my understanding, between two prime ministers, we've had a special advisor, which Bob Rae was the most recent one, on the Rohingya crisis. Bangladesh remains one of Canada's largest development partners, even though we have a lot. But I think in South Asia, we have an enormous amount of interest in terms of the Rohingya people, the betterment, supporting the camps, and working to make sure that, life can be as comfortable for them as possible. So it's quite encouraging for me in that sense, that whether in terms of a long-term interest in threatened populations and either bringing them to Canada or supporting them in where they have been displaced to, or supporting their legal sort of cases in international forums, in international legal jurisdictions, as well as in terms of aid and continued long-term support, and interest in the highest offices in government. We may not have a special advisor on the Rohingya crisis right now under Prime Minister Carney, but I can tell you that between my colleague and I who look at that issue, it's still very much prevalent. It is of great interest. I guess we're sort of waiting to see. There's a new government in Bangladesh. An election happened very recently. I don't think I have great clarity in terms of Prime Minister Tariq Rahman and his thinking on the Rohingya crisis. But I know our High Commissioner over there, the Canadian High Commissioner Ajit Singh, is very engaged. He met the new Prime Minister of Bangladesh. As much as we can get clarity, we'll continue engaging and supporting the issue. I don't know if that helps sort of.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to say that we have three individuals here who are from Myanmar, and we acknowledge and encourage to see you here. You have a question, sir? You have to say yes?
I have a question.
Huh?
He does have a question. Sure.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Introduce yourself.
Good evening. I am Shafiullah. I am from Suri, BC. I am a director of Rohingya Canadian community in British Columbia. So I have more than 200 family. So hope is challenged to adapt into a new Canadian life because of they have zero acknowledgement of Canada. They don't have education, they don't have a skill, they don't have anything ever, right? So they are completely, I can say, a lower level of life. So this is a very high standard life, Canada life. So right now they face a lot of challenge because of even in schools, there are many, like I can say, a lot of diabetes school, success like this, a lot of things they have. But even because of they don't have a completely, like I can say, zero education. They don't know even alphabet of the English. So when they go to school, they don't know what they are doing because they don't know anything. So right now they face a lot of challenge. So even for our organization is open for 2 years almost. So we open already like I can say 2 adult school for them, but we are helping ourselves. We are not passing anyone like government help, no one help, but it's very difficult for them to challenge. For me, thank you so much, the writer of the book, Rohingya Story. I got the email from maybe from you. So my question for you is do you think the book can explain any like Myanmar government denied Rohingya, right? They call us Bengali. Even Rohingya Aboriginal people before them, because Myanmar government invaded Arakan in 1792 around, right? Before Rohingya live under British government or India like this, it was like same like Aboriginal people. After Myanmar government take out, they are like pushing out us from the country and they invaded there. Like for me, when I was 8 years old, I left the country, Myanmar. So at the time, right now, according to my information, my family is still over there in Myanmar, Butidong, Rakhine state. So most of the like land, home, everything is like they resettle with the Buddhist family. You got what I mean? Muslim, all of the Rohingya like home, property, everything they given to the Buddhist family. So right now, all of these owner are Buddhist. There is none of the Muslim. All of the ancient like Aboriginal like home or mosque, any cultural center, all of them, they convert into different like religions. So it's mean Myanmar like planning like different way. Because we know all over the world what is going somewhere else. But in Myanmar is different. It's not like that. We cannot see like outside. Inside completely different. None of the information can go out. It's not right. Well, I can say 1% or 2% only go out of the country. Rest of the 98% inside the country. So my question is, your book can prove it like that. Rohingya live in Myanmar before Myanmar government invaded Arakan. Is there any proof about it or no?
Okay, thank you. First of all, Shafil Dasab, thank you for coming with your friends to this discussion. Your presence is very important, and I'm glad you are here. The book is about Rohingya, their history, and the struggle over the last 200 years. So the book, to begin with, is contributing to the understanding of the Rohingya crisis in the West, in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, globally. So that is the primary emphasis of the book that we have done. Second, the story that you mentioned about Rohingya 200 years ago and today, the Rohingya situation in Myanmar and in Cox's Bazar. This also has been reflected in various chapters of the book. I'm glad you mentioned the difficulties that you are having in adapting to this new country and home. And this is not discussed here in the book because our issue was very different. This is a new line of discussions and issues that can come in future, discussions and exercises. And beyond that, the book raises the awareness about Rohingya issues. That is the primary purpose of the book. And thank you for coming. I know we will be running out of time very soon, but if I may, we want to take one question from here and one from the online. We have something like 40 plus people online. Is there anyone online wants to throw a question? And please mention who you are asking to respond to this question.
Maybe we'll take another in the audience.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a second question before this technical thing is solved. Anyone wants to have a question here to any one of us?
Dr. Zaman,
Yes.
Maya Mustahed from Zoom, the person raised his hand or her hand. So do you want to invite?
Yeah, please invite and please address the answers because I cannot see. We have some
Oh, I see.
technical issues.
Okay, no problem. Maya Mustahed, please shoot your question and let us know who should be responding to your question. Go ahead. Maya Mustahed.
Maya, can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
I do. Hello, can you
Hi.
hear me?
You know.
Hi.
Hi, sorry for my voice due to my cold. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
My name is Maya Mujtahed. I work for VAS BC. And I also emailed my question because I know I cannot speak. So if you have my email, the question is the same things, which I sent it earlier today online, and I emailed it to you. So if you don't see my email, then let me know and I can speak about it.
Do you think you can say out your question? I think we're still looking for your email. So if you could
Speak.
say it orally.
Yes. As part of the funds of the government for helping refugees, we were serving, like we have a program that it calls Community Connection, and we help refugees and welcome them to our event that happen every Friday. So we had, at least for 2 months, we had people from Myanmar. And I was witness that these people, as the other person who is from Myanmar, and he is there in person mentioned, they don't even know alphabet. They don't know basic lifestyle in the West. Why they have to bring them here and do not take responsibility to teach them how to read and write, and their kids, like each family comes with 5, 6 little kids that they had no proper clothing on. My heart was burning to see them. They had no idea how to eat with the spoon and fork, most of them. They were using their hand for eating. So the government is responsible to take a good care of those people. My question is, what the government, I know none of the government people are in this event, but whoever can answer my question, what is the solution to help those people who left their country and they are not adjusting with the new community? They are not understanding the new community. That's why they can't get adjusted. Is a big gap between their culture and Western culture. Why they brought them in this culture that they have no idea about it. And instead, my understanding is it's fine, it's great to help those people. I was facilitating them for 2 months, helping them to get adjusted a little bit and understanding the community, the new home. But I'm one person. I'm just one person can do that. In my opinion, people who have a big
Thank-
gap.
Thank you.
Do you want to ask this question specifically to one of the three of us or four of us?
Whoever can answer that question, I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I understand your question, but I guess I'm looking at it from a very different way. What you're describing about are people who don't have clothes, who are completely uneducated, who have no idea about a Western societal context. You're actually describing a society that has been oppressed by Myanmar for decades and for a very long time. They've been maybe purposely kept uneducated, kept in dire poverty. So I don't blame them in any way that it's taking them longer maybe to, I'm an immigrant myself, but maybe I was much more fortunate to come in with very different circumstances to understand the Western societal context and live over here. But I don't think I would ever take issue with the people who have been terrorized, who have been massacred, who had to flee through multiple nations to maybe come to Canada that you've been working with, and then worry about sort of their levels of education and whatnot. If anything, I think I would have more empathy and sympathy. And certainly I take your point that I wish we had more resources to help support them in terms of their integration, in terms of their settlement in Canada. But yeah, no, I'm like, I see where you're coming from, but I think if anything, it makes it more pertinent to us as Canada to be welcoming them, to help support them. And maybe just on the issue of eating hands, South Asians, we eat with our hands. We don't use utensils, especially if it's rice and stuff. So that is not an issue in any particular way for me. So, voilà.
I'm sorry. I hope I explain myself in the right direction. I have a sympathy and empathy about these people. I think these people have right to have a good life in Canada. But what is the plan? I ask, what is the plan to give them that opportunity?
Can I jump in a little bit?
Yes, please, Kausar.
Thank you. Thank you
Floor
very
is
much.
yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, this is a very interesting question. And we are hearing a lot recently, certain, angle of humanitarian response of Canada. And thanks again, Mr. Qureshi, for scoping it out. And I'll only add from practitioner and researcher point of view is that we consistently advocate that resettlement is not a solution to this crisis. Resettlement, if from the research angle, if you see, a very tiny part actually could bring some people in as a token of, as a gesture. And historically, Canada brought Rohingyas the least amount in comparison to other communities. Both people, Syrians, Yazidis, if you compare, Canada only brought a minuscule amount of Rohingyas in Canada through government assisted refugee program. Majority Rohingyas, those who came, they came actually through church sponsorship, faith-based sponsorship, and private sponsorship. As you know, Canada has three streams of sponsorship of refugees. So technically, that is the issue. Now, coming back to your question, of course, you have sympathy and empathy, but we also try to contextualize why Rohingyas were so dispossessed. Rohingyas historically, as Mr. Qureshi emphasized, that they are the most dispossessed, to the best of our knowledge in the history, is not even 1982. It is far beyond 1982. They are historically, they are uneducated, and this is why we advocate that education is the single most capacity building exercise that Canada can invest in directly, which Canada unfortunately has not invested in education. So this is what we are saying, that Rohingyas, we have to really build their capacity so that either they get repatriated or even they migrate within a resettlement scheme, not only to Canada, to other countries. They can cope up and match with the standard of the society they live in. So I'll stop by saying that it is unfortunate situation, but we have to really deploy as much compassion as we can. Thank you.
From the screen.
I can read it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So we have another question from Zoom. It's a question from Mohammed Morshid, who acknowledges that he's not an expert on the issue. Although this important publication laid important info on Rohingya people, however, as a concerned citizen, I like to know, as all of you are experts in this issue, what do you think the future of repatriation of Rohingya people in their own land, I guess, is and would be, to remain in a scholastic discussion, or will it happen at all? I think over time, this issue is getting less and less attention. So I guess it's a question about how do you think that there is repatriation possible?
Yeah, I think I will ask Kausar to respond to that. The future of repatriation and the complexities in it.
Thank you, Dr. Zaman, and thank you for the question. It is again absolutely timely question. We all are kind of wondering, and even particularly and importantly, the host countries. Bangladesh is in the lead, and all other host countries, as you have heard from Mr. Qureshi's brief explanation, how India is evolving, and there is a case actually in Supreme Court. And over the past couple of years, India has actually pushed Rohingyas back to Bangladesh, not to Rakhine. So it is a very critical discussion. And you are absolutely right that nobody, no external agencies are talking about any kind of repatriation model to the best of my knowledge. I had been to UN General Assembly on 30th September in a special session that Bangladesh organized. I have not heard a single word about the possibility of repatriation. And this is again very complex, as Dr. Zaman has mentioned just a couple of seconds ago, that the complexity surrounding the idea of repatriation, what model you can really come up with. We have seen failed bilateral negotiation. We have seen failed multilateral negotiation. The accountability and justice track is very, very long. I don't know when somebody at some point in time, gave a verdict to the genocide, and what will happen with this verdict, who knows? So this is very tough question, and this is why we are trying to find out these and trigger this discussion in the regional area, ASEAN, and also from the international community, that let's talk about repatriation. Because if we don't talk about repatriation, Rohingyas will be stranded forever, and this will be one of the protracted refugee situation in the world, which will go beyond regular security situation. Think about 500,000 plus young people stuck 24 hours within this encampment situation. How do you expect them to live their life indefinitely? And it is ninth year we are talking about, but do you know that Rohingyas have been coming into Bangladesh, living into this situation since 1978? There are generations of Rohingyas grew in the camps. So what are their hopes for the future? Nobody knows. And I don't have any solution per se, but I can tell you that nobody is talking about repatriation of Rohingyas. Thank you.
If I may add to this, the newly elected government has not spoken on this crisis yet, or any particular policy approach, or any particular alternative approach. So I can only say that the prospect for repatriation is still a very long way to go. And the response from Myanmar is zero. And interaction between the government of Bangladesh and the government of Myanmar is must take place. Find out a diplomatic way to deal with it and discuss on the ground, I guess, with the Rohingya people. What are the, for example, the basic minimum that is required for them to move back, and also develop an environment in Myanmar with equality, justice, with support for livelihood, with housing, not in the shelters that have been an option over the last few years, and Rohingyas are not willing to go back. So if you want to look at the repatriation, there is still a lot of talkings that needs to be done. There is no proper avenue, proper strategy, proper approach. And we have to wait for a while, I'm sure, to understand how the current government or the newly elected government wants to deal with it. The task is there, not with us. As a researcher, we just follow and analyze that. So thank you, Dr. Morshed, for your question. We would like to move to our in-person audience. And if you have a question, we can
Dr.
take
Zaman. Dr. Zaman, can I just add a very brief comment, 30 seconds?
Okay. Please go ahead. And then we come to you.
Thank you. This is just in addition to Dr. Zaman's comment about repatriation and the intricacies involved. One aspect we seldom discuss about the political resolution of Rohingya citizenship, because Rohingyas won't be landing there without proper citizenship.
Yes.
And this is a very complicated decision, and that will only happen inside Myanmar and not from outside. And we would also like to add that we have raised this question to government of Bangladesh in our last two trips. What would be the national strategy for Bangladesh in terms of repatriation? And you can see our discussion in our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's already mics are there.
Okay. I'll still pass it on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Shirley. I'm a retired social worker, and I volunteer with Maya, who spoke. And the program she's talking about, if anybody wants to talk with me further, I'll be here, is every Friday, Community Connections at Commercial, 10th and Victoria, and there's also an office in Surrey of VAST, and it's open to, it's mainly for welcoming newly arrived refugees, and we have had a number of Rohingya, and there have been interpreters, mainly one interpreter for the Rohingya at times. It's a very casual, non-pressured setting where the participants are welcomed with snacks, relaxation exercises, some games for kids, and a meal. So just like to let you know about that.
No, I think it was just telling us about the program.
Alex, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, so I'm the very proud publisher of this book that I've worked with Zaman Kaza and Bob. Sorry, I'm quite loud naturally, Bob, thanks. So I just wanted to thank you all for doing such a stellar job. And I only realized last week that I was going to be here for AAS, the Association of Asian Studies Conference this week. So it's my great pleasure to be here and congratulate you on a fine effort. And I think just one of the things, I cover Southeast and East Asia from Singapore, humanities and social sciences work. So I think that sometimes a proposal lands on your desk that you just know is doing something important. And the other proposals that we have received that have been talking about the Rohingya crisis have always, again, looked at very, as you said, the humanitarian perspective, very exclusively, the very contemporary positionality of the crisis. And I really want to commend you for looking at the historical underpinnings of the map, again, Bob, how important that map is in telling the story. And I think one of the points I wanted to raise more than a question is just how difficult it is to source scholarly perspectives from within Myanmar. And I think in your book, I think you've got one chapter that's talking on, perspectives from Myanmar, from within Myanmar. And I also wonder if that doesn't inflect how, just addressing this issue when it's really difficult to get those perspectives. And I think it's wonderful that we've got some people from Myanmar here today, because I just want to say that I really want to see more voices coming from within Myanmar and contributing to these kind of discussions. But it is a real challenge to source those voices. So hopefully if there's a follow-up on this project in a few years' time, it would really be nice to see more chapters coming out from contributors within Myanmar. So I hope we can look at that maybe for a second edition in a few years. But yeah, just to say to everyone as well, you can obviously buy the book in print, but by the same measure, we really want to encourage a dialogue in terms of what the book is confronting, the questions it's asking, and the challenges it's addressing. So if you would like a copy of it, you can email me or obviously email any of the editors to send you a soft copy. So yeah, just drop me an email. You can find me online on the Springer site. So if you can't access the book through your institution, please drop me a line. Yeah. So thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
I wanted to say something.
You want to say something?
Hello, good evening, everyone. So, I am newcomers in Canada. So, I was born here in Myanmar. So, when I was born in Myanmar, I go to the school. So, we are attending school only 10 class. We passed 10 class, graduated. We never go to the college. The Myanmar government denied the education, everything. We went to look a job, government didn't give the job, especially our Rohingya peoples. So in my village, more than 300 people killed Myanmar governments. In 2017, 13 August. Also among my families, 5 people killed Myanmar governments. In my niece, Myanmar government rapes the young girls. Only 13 years old she is. So I am very, very sorry. I am very, very thankful. This event, I will explain I am feeling genocide survival 15. So our Rohingya people, most of the people do not know about the educations. If I learn education more, what I do in Arakan, especially most of the Rohingya people who learn something, we go to the other country because we did not live in Myanmar. Myanmar government did opportunity in especially our Rohingya peoples, any opportunity. They are also we properly didn't obey our religions. We didn't build my house. We didn't keep my house. We didn't keep our property. They are take out our property, Myanmar governments. So this history is historical books. I have one more question. This history book established in Canada or our Bangladesh refugee can also establish?
Thank you. We want to give you a copy of the book to Rohingya Committee Canada to you as a gift from us to discuss this and see what we have done. And we have not been able to talk about the book as much in this short time.
So at the end of the meeting, we will give you a copy to the Rohingya Canada Committee in Surrey, and we'll continue our interaction with you in future. It appears that we are very close to finishing, and we want to take one more question.
But the last thing that he asked was whether or not you think the book might be available in Bangladesh or for.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. You know, Alex is here. When the book went to production, we discussed with Springer whether we can get a much cheaper paperback edition published by UPL, United University Press Limited in Dhaka, at a cheaper rate. And there was some discussion and didn't go anywhere. But a paperback edition would be available very soon at a lower cost. And the book will be available in Myanmar through some illegal channels in Bangladesh. This is what happens, everything now. Every information that you have in Cox's Bazar is available in Myanmar through the local channels.
As a follow-up, is there an interest in the possibility of translating the book?
In Bangladesh, in Bengali, or no, we have not thought about it really, honestly, because we are not very competent in the language, Burmese or Rohingya language as such. We are happy if it is available in Bangladesh, a cheaper cost, and somehow, and then it will be available in Myanmar also. This is by default, if I may say, back and forth. A lot of things happen, and we have some Rohingya authors in the book who have got the book through other channels internationally. And
one of the chapters was written in Arakan by an Arakan author.
And there are 2 poems in the book, and this is why I was very excited about the book myself. It tells the story in the poem and takes your heart out, really, basically. When someone say, I don't have a home or a story to say, because nobody wants to listen to us. So what should I say? Okay, the story is still not told from their perspective. It is told in another perspective, which is, humanitarian, perfectly all right. We need humanitarian assistance, we need support, but they're not talking about the politics of this, of the destruction and the future of the Rohingya people. So the book is available and will be available in Myanmar in some form or other. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that Alex is here and she's listening to the discussion also, that there is a need for the book to be available in Dhaka and also in Myanmar.
So maybe I could just tack onto that, because we discussed with UPL trying to come to an arrangement. So what UPL would have had to do is come to stock a certain number of books, and then we would give them like a special edition that they would then distribute and sell at a local price point. So that went through our sales and licensing team. But maybe UPL didn't follow up with, because they would have to stock a certain number, right? So I'm still in discussion with them, so I can try again and motivate them to stock a certain number of.
That's a good news. The discussion is still on.
For the print version,
yeah.
But again,
Digital copy.
Yeah.
What about digital copy?
It's available.
Digital copy.
Yeah.
Digital
It's available.
Digital is available anywhere. You can
But there are
download it.
lots of people in Myanmar, they won't be able to read it on screen.
So without, if anyone wants to read the book in soft copy, providing it's not being distributed for commercial purposes, but you can email any of the editors here and ask for a soft copy, or email me and I'll email you the PDF. So it's just, that's absolutely no problem.
One of the advantages of the book being published by Springer is a global publisher. You can get the book anywhere in the world. And if you look at the web now, this book is advertised so much. I was a little bit, happy and to see that the book has been advertised globally so much by Springer. And if any one of you want to know more about the book or want to have access, please send a mail to me. If you know my email, we will be able to update you on that also. There is no issue. We are very close to finishing, but
I just want to thank everyone for being here and for my colleague Joel Lee for staying along after her normal disappearing hour, and also Doris Tai. We're grateful for your time, and to Zawad Qureshi, whom I don't see often, but now I'm getting my real good contact. And thank you, Adel, for mentioning the idea of, of translation and making it more accessible. Yeah. And we are, of course, very grateful to the David Lamb Center, the Center for Comparative Study of Muslim Societies, and the Dean's Fund for Global Asia in helping us to stage this. And they have also most kindly prepared refreshments for you. So I take this opportunity to invite you to come down and have a snack and have a chat. Thank you.
I want to thank you all who have come here in person. It was a great honor, the support that you have given. We are also grateful some 40 plus participants that have joined online, and also thank again to Qureshi, to all of you for joining us. Please help yourself and let us continue the discussions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.